Not gonna lie, it's been a couple of years since I took a look at the Canon PowerShot G7X Mark II, but I was really impressed with it when I did have a couple of days to play with it. So when I heard that Canon was rolling out a brand new version of it with 4K and a microphone jack, I had to go ahead and pick one up. So today, obviously, we're going to be taking a look at the Canon PowerShot G7X Mark III. Just looking around the box, relatively plain and unassuming. It does have the newer Digic 8 processor, a 1-inch type CMOS sensor, 20 megapixel sensor, 20.1 megapixel, a 24mm at the wide end lens. It goes as wide as f1.8 with a flip up 3-inch touch LCD. So on paper, it sounds like this is like the best of all possible worlds for a pocket camera, but I have heard lots of not so great things about it. Let's see what's in the box and give it a test. Got some warranty paperwork, getting started guide, registration, safety instructions for the power brick, and the power brick, the battery charger, battery, which is a Canon NB13L, 1250 milliamp hour. And I think this is a pretty common battery, so it shouldn't be a problem to find a replacement for it. Wrist strap, which I might actually use, and we'll come back to this in a minute. And finally, the camera itself. This is available in two colors. You've got the full black, and then you've got the black and silver, which is the one I've got here. This is a bit of a chunky boy. It's definitely a little thicker than I would have expected. I mean, just for a point of comparison, I've got the Sony RX100 Mark VI right here. I don't think I'm going to be purchasing the Mark VII just because another $1,200 for a relatively minor upgrade doesn't seem worthwhile to me. But just putting them up side by side, you can see the G7X looks a little bit thicker from sort of all sides, and it definitely has a much larger grip on it. Both good and bad, I would say. And actually, I haven't even talked about it on this channel yet. I've also got the Canon SX740HS. This was actually Canon's first 4K pocket camera, and you put them up side by side, they look really, really similar, but strangely enough, the new G7X is definitely a little bit chunkier than even this camera. I don't have the measurements on me at the moment. You can feel free to look them up, or I can stick them down in the description below. I've been meaning to make a full video about this camera, but it's, I think, a $400 point and shoot that does 4K, so the expectations have to be realistic there. In case you are not familiar with it, the new G7X Mark III comes in at $750. Again, it has a mic jack, it has 4K, it has the tilty flippy screen that can even come out like this and come down to 45 degrees. So it is very articulatable. Sure, that's a word. But let's go ahead and take just a minute and go around the camera here. So as you can see right here, front and center, 4.2 times IS 1.8 to 2.8 lens. Over here on this side, we have a pop-up flash button. You can see it pops the flash up. We have the microphone jack. So if I poke my fingernail in there and pull it out, there is the microphone jack, got a nice cover on it. The other side, you've got a USB-C and micro HDMI port, as well as that Wi-Fi button. On the top, as I already mentioned, you've got the flash, you've got speakers and microphones and such, the on-off power button, the zoom button, shutter button, and a couple of toggle dials here that are on top of each other, one for exposure compensation and one for changing the mode, and then all kinds of buttons on the back. Playback, menu, record. The record button's in a really weird position, but I think from the front, yeah, that'll be pretty easy to find. And a star button, as well as all of the menu buttons here. This does have a wheel around it, so you can move that wheel. And then flash, info, well, just the standard buttons you would expect. There is a Q button here in the middle to get you into that Q set menu. And then on the bottom, you open the door here. This is where the SD card and the battery are gonna go. Battery is in. SD card is in. Hit the button just to see if it has any charge. It says set focal length. Looks like the charge, yeah, it doesn't have much. To apply effects, press the creative assist button. We're gonna hide this next time. When you shoot in RAW or C-RAW format, you can apply effects after shooting. Hide that too. And interestingly enough, it didn't ask me to set the date and time. Most cameras start off with that. It does already have the date time set as February 12th, 2019. There we go. Go ahead and set that. I'm gonna go ahead and reformat the card just to make sure that it is clean. Now if I go back to the menus here, image quality, you can see it's set to large right now. RAW is turned off, and it looks like to set the RAW setting, it has a dial here I have to twist, so I can twist it to RAW or C-RAW. I'm gonna leave it on RAW turned off because I actually don't do any editing of photos, especially not from a point and shoot. For the drive mode here, you can do single shooting, high speed continuous, low speed continuous, self timers, and a continuous self timer. There's your IS settings, so you can turn it, it's already turned on, but you can set the dynamic IS to low or standard. Just gonna leave it as is for the moment. Auto leveling, enabled or disabled. Digital zoom, standard or off. Movie record quality here in menu number 5. That really should be menu number 2 for somebody like me. But by default, it is set to full HD, and I can come in and set it to full HD. That's as high as it'll go because I am in the auto mode. If I go all the way back out and switch it over to movie mode, this is one of the things I'm not a fan of on the Canon cameras. Now if I go to the page 1 of the menu, shooting mode, I have auto, manual, and HDR. And then if I go to record quality, I can change this to 4K 2997, Full HD 2997, Full HD 60p, or 720p 60p. I'm going to go with this. As you might have noticed, there are no 24p options. It also mentions max record time of 10 minutes. And this, from what I have heard, does have the possibility to overheat. That said, my RX 100 Mark VI has overheated quite a few times, and it overheats, it stops working at 5 minutes. So 10 minutes on this, a little bit better. Not really excusable in this day and age, but you know, we've also got a high frame rate option I can enable here in case I'm wanting to. Does full HD 120 frames per second with a max record time of 7.5 minutes. We're going to disable that for right now though. Interestingly, whenever I turned it off, it went back to full HD 60 instead of 4K, which is where I had it before. Movie self-timer, you can have it turn on after 10 seconds or 2 seconds. Sound recording, again, here you have more settings now because you can plug a microphone in. So I can set it to manual and then record, change the levels and everything. And it has built-in time-lapse, which is really nice to have. Built-in ND filter for going outdoors, that's awesome. Hopefully a lot of these things are accessible from that Q set menu. White balance settings, yeah, for the most part, the rest of this, just bog standard camera stuff. So I don't wanna go too deep into that because the battery's about to die. If I hit the Q set menu though, I can choose my shooting mode. I can go in between manual and HDR here. I can set my 4K options. I just heard a beep, so I gotta go turn that off. I can turn the ND on and off. I can change the white balance, change the auto lighting optimizer. I can change the autofocusing mode, either autofocus face tracking or 1-point autofocus. You can change what's on the screen by hitting the info button. There we had nothing, we have a little bit of stuff, we have a lot of stuff, including the volume levels. Although from what I've heard, again, if you have a mic plugged in, you don't get the volume levels on the monitor when you have it flipped up. I gotta turn that beep off. There we go, we can disable it from here. And we do have a My Menu option, so we can set up a custom menu with whatever we want in it if the things are not available in that QSet menu. But I think at this point I have to actually go ahead and plug the camera in or put the battery in at the very least. Interesting, when I shake this around, the lens makes a lot of noise, so I'll have to be very careful about that. But let's see some samples. Okay, here's the first test out of the Canon G7X Mark III. This should be in full 4K, 30 frames per second. I am just sitting here in my home studio setup. I've got the bright lights overhead on, but I should be able to go ahead and turn those off, which that'll give you a little sense of bright versus dark. You can see it is picking up. It looks like I'm out of focus. I'm not surprised. I have seen several videos of people saying that this goes out of focus very quickly, but it looks like it picked it back up. And one of the biggest complaints I saw was, yeah, you're gonna have to just keep an eye on the overhead monitor. So I can see that I am in focus at the moment. Turn the bright lights back on, give it just a second to adjust. There we go. Let's try it out with a little mic. This is a mic that actually came with a Ceramonic mixer that I've got. These are like 25 bucks on Amazon, and I know Justine talked about them in her recent video, so felt appropriate to mention them here too. Now I'm not entirely sure on my levels here, but I have gone ahead and switched over to that Ceramonic external microphone, so this should make a little bit of difference. We'll see how that looks and how that sounds. And now I've got a lavalier microphone clipped onto my shirt. This is the lavalier mic that came with the Sennheiser G3 setup, so just plugged it directly in and it does appear to be working, although it's really hard to gauge the levels and I don't want to put it on auto. Usually an auto mode would add in a lot of additional background noise. Let's just see if there's any background noise right now. And then an option I think a lot of people will probably want to go with, I have the Rode Wireless Go system, although it's a little weirdly set up on my shirt here, but it's wireless, so I'm not actually tethered directly to the camera, so I could always put the camera on a little tripod, put it farther away from me, hope that everything stays in focus, and still have better quality audio as a result. But this as a main camera actually wouldn't be a bad thing. You're investing $750 into a camera like this, so you want it to be good in a wide variety of scenarios. Now I'm sitting here at my desk. It is significantly lower light and a different color of light. I've got a tri-lamp. It's got 3 bulbs on it, but they're just standard brightness LED bulbs. So this would be a more average home type scenario. But then if we switch to the overhead lighting, you can see the color is a lot better. I've bought several of these LED pancake options for my basement, and it definitely makes it a lot brighter, a lot easier to get things done down here. And the light color is like 4,000 Kelvin, so a little easier on the eyes. By the way, in the last couple of clips here, when I moved out of my filming space, I switched back to the Ceremonic $25 external microphone, so that's what it sounds like just kind of walking around with it. Boy, this one's right overhead and bright. I'm going to flip the mic around toward myself, but we've got a cat in a box. She just loves this box. My wife's been buying yarn and making blankets and things, and yep, cat in a box. Now we have a much more dimly lit room. There's no lights on in this room, just a little bit of light coming in from the doorway over there. So this will let you know how grainy, if at all, it gets in lower lighting. It looks like the focus is staying really well on me. By the way, different clothing because it's a different day. Ran out of time yesterday. But this is what it looks like in low light, so that's the amount of graininess you should expect. And then to the other extreme, very bright outdoor scene. And we actually got a lot of background noise. The neighbors are mowing the lawn and everything. So hopefully this directional mic is making a difference. Hopefully you can actually hear me. I'm gonna turn on the ND filter and see how big of a difference that makes. Okay, ND filter turned on. Everything else is still auto mode. I'm still using the external microphone, so see if that makes any difference. It doesn't look like, it still looks like it's really, really bright. And this is the HDR mode. Although when I switched it to the HDR mode, I lost the ability to change the way that the audio is controlled, so I don't think I can do manual audio now. And now I should be in full manual mode. I'm at 1/60th of a second. I am filming this 4K 30 and f4.0, but I do have the ND filter turned on. Nice that you do have at least some manual controls. And for comparison, this is the exact same settings with that ND filter turned off. For 1/60th, I have to take it up to about f10 to be comparable, so that does make a massive difference. And here's a quick 4K time lapse, followed by a much slower 120 frames per second 1080p clip of my cat. Now we're back inside, just kind of quickly wrap things up. So far, the video quality out of this thing, when it's in focus, the video looks absolutely awesome. The built-in ND filter, it's something that Sony took away with the RX100 Mark VII, so it is very nice to have that as an option on Canon's newest offering. Mic jack, it seems to make it significantly better. Without it, it sounded like in my case there was a lot of background noise just with the built-in audio, and with it, using this little $25 external microphone, it seems to be doing a really good job. I haven't had it overheat yet, but I haven't been filming for terribly long. That's sort of why I'm sitting here rambling for a few minutes, is just to see if I can make it overheat. But as just sort of a run and gun setup, I mean, you saw how well it did in the low light, how well it did in bright outdoor light thanks to the ND filter and full manual controls. It has the built-in HDR video option, and again, external mic jack. This is something that for events, for travel vlogging, this would be like an absolutely amazing all-around camera. The one thing that Sony does have a slight edge on is the lens. This one goes out to f1.8 at 24 millimeters, which is awesome. The Sony only does f2.8 at 24 or 28 millimeters, whatever the widest is on the newest Sony. But the zoom on the Canon is 100 millimeters at f2.8, whereas the Sony goes out to 200 millimeters. 100 versus 200, that's a pretty significant difference, but for average everyday travel vlogging, I think 100 will probably be just fine. It's a little bit longer than most of the last generation of cameras, except for Sony's. The other very cool thing about this is it does work with the battery from my other Canon camera, the SX740HS, but it does not use the NB12L like a lot of the older Canon point and shoots. So if you don't have some of the newer batteries, you're gonna have to buy one or more, because with a little amount of stuff I've done with this, I'm already down to half battery. And my limited amount of testing, the USB-C port on the side can't be used for charging. Maybe I've missed something there, but I plugged a USB-C cable in, plugged it into a charger, didn't work. Minor after the fact update, I did get it to work with USB-C for charging, but it only seems to be working with higher wattage, higher amperage power adapters, so like my MacBook Pro charger, USB power delivery things, or quick charge over USB-C. Anything that is USB Type A to Type C, the older style USB plug to Type C, doesn't seem to work for me, but that does provide a little bit of hope. You can actually charge it over USB-C, you just have to have the right amount of power, but they do ship it with an external charger, so expect to use that as well, and probably just, again, have multiple batteries. The autofocus, it definitely could be better, but just every time I keep looking up and checking, it looks like I'm in focus, but I'm also not challenging it. When I was outdoors, it was probably having a little bit of a harder time moving around, having difficult lighting. That might cause it to be problematic. Look at the lighting here. This is our entryway, and the video from this looks great in the overhead monitor. Like, it's hard to stop looking up at it because it's like, that looks surprisingly good, especially considering that Sony's offering for this generation is like $1,200 and this one's $750. The autofocus is the one major issue, and hopefully that is something they will fix with a firmware update, although I'm pretty sure that the last generation, the G7X Mark II, also had the same issues. Anyway, this is just a very quick early impressions of the camera. For $750 for 800 tax included and everything, I'm pretty happy with it. I could see using this as a vlogging camera for my family, maybe doing some quick photos and portraits and stuff. Probably not, because it's a point and shoot. It's not going to be that great for portraits. But for travel and for events and for anything outside of the home, this might be my go-to. I'll have this in one pocket and then one of the DJI Osmo Action or Pocket in the other pocket. Anyway, let me know what you think of the video quality, the audio quality, and all of those things down in the comment section below. Thank you guys as always for watching. Hit the thumbs up if you like the video. Links to where you can purchase it, probably affiliate links just to help support the channel because I did pay for this out of pocket. Links can be found down below if you want, if you're interested. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, if you want to get notified when new videos become available. And I'll see you again next time. Bye guys.